Okay, so I've pressed the record button because these sessions are recorded, so I can upload them afterwards for any students that aren't able to attend live, and obviously also for you guys to be able to reference later in your own time as well. So this session this evening is called the NSS session, National Support Session, and it's specifically for your first assignment. So whatever we'll discuss tonight is support surrounding help that you require for assignment 1. So that's the purpose of this evening's collab. But it's not a formal session, so you guys are welcome to chat. You can put questions in the chat box. You can open your mic and ask questions. There's no formality, so don't feel intimidated or too shy, or that you can't interrupt me with questions. The sessions are really for students, an opportunity for students to talk on a live basis with the tutors, so that anything that you've got that you want to know, that we're here to help you. But obviously I have got some prepared stuff that I will go through with you that will be useful for you to use for your first assignment, and stuff that's essential that you know for your first assignment, and that you bear in mind and use when you're doing it. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Philippa, have you managed to get a textbook? I know you were still you were still looking for a textbook before the weekend. Have you managed to get a textbook? That really is critical with this module. You really need that. The textbook is everything. It's the only source that you need is your textbook, and obviously hopefully the workbook that goes with it. You don't need any other outside sources other than that, but you do need the textbook. So anybody that is still battling to get a textbook or hasn't been able to yet, what I would suggest, because the due date for your first assignment is the 4th of September, which is just over a week from now. Where are we? We're on Wednesday. So next week, Wednesday, it's the following Monday. So it's due in about a week and a half's time. So anyone who hasn't got a textbook, I would suggest applying on the Student Hub for an extension for hand-in for your first assignment. And usually they'll be quite willing if you explain you were a late registration student, or for instance, in Palelo's case, he wasn't able to have access to Learn. And he doesn't have a textbook. If you want to, obviously it's not a must, but if you want to, please, you're absolutely free to request an extension, which will maybe then give you an extra week to 10 days to work on your assignment before you have to hand it in. But obviously you have to have a good reason, so they don't just let anyone apply and give the extension. So if you do feel you've got a good reason, you are allowed to do that. And remember that, because it's better to ask for an extension than just not submitting an assignment at all because you've got overwhelmed for some other reason. Okay. So then, sorry, I didn't turn my video on. I'll turn it on, and if I have connection issues, I'll switch it off again. It all depends on what the connection is feeling like. Okay, so it's much better if you can see my face somewhere on the screen. All right, so to start off with then, in terms of the assignment, the document that you can see on the screen now is what I call the assignment brief. And what I include in this document are more kind of technical and housekeeping issues to do with your assignment, and the format it needs to be in, and how you go about uploading it, etc. Because there's quite a few things in this little document that students, it's like FAQs, and the students forget and then they don't know where to find the information. So I've put it all into this little document, which I will upload in your more resources and in your announcements, so that I'll do that tomorrow, so you've got access to it, so that you can go and remind yourself, if at the last minute you suddenly think, oh Lord, what did ma'am say we need to do again, you'll be able to come and consult this document. So I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I'll just briefly go through it so that you can see what it is. So the most important thing for me is that you must upload a PDF file, so do not upload a Word document. So most of you are probably going to be working in Word to do your assignment. And when you've completed it, you must just do the conversion or the export. You guys know how to do it. At the top of the Word document, top left, you've got File. You click on File and then you click on Export and then create a PDF document, and the system does everything for you. And you just save the PDF file, and then that's what you then upload to the assessment link. For those students that want to handwrite your assignment, which you are absolutely welcome to do, you obviously just need to make sure that you are using a nice dark black pen, preferably something like a black fine liner, because when you scan the pages, that will obviously be clear, and make sure that your writing is legible. And then what you would do is make sure that your pages are numbered and in the correct order when you scan them in, so that it creates one PDF file that is then uploaded to that link. What you can't do if you're going to handwrite your assignment is upload 10 separate pages to the link. Okay, so most of you will have on your smartphones a scanning app. And if you haven't got one, there are plenty that you can download. The one that I use, that I've used for ages, that is really good, is called Tiny Scanner. And you can use that with your phone to then take sequential photographs of all the pages, and it collates them into one PDF document, and you can do it like that as well. So if you are using that method, again, just make sure when you are taking the photographs of each page that the photograph is 100% in focus and clear, and I don't have your bed or your dressing gown or anything else in the photograph. It's just the page from directly above, and that it's very clear. Okay. You'll be surprised what I can see in some of these pictures. I can see what the students had for supper and what their bedspread looks like with their duvet cover and all sorts of things. But you can, so obviously, yes, you can handwrite your assignment. You don't have to write it in Word, but just make sure that it's all neat and in order. So basically on this document, I've given you some instructions. And if you do get stuck when it comes to the end, just give me a shout and I'll help you as well. Okay, so here's, if you don't have access to a scanner, about the photographs, you can do that. And then I'll show you on screen in a minute. So when you upload your assignment, you go to Learn, and down the left-hand menu, you'll find a heading called Submission Links. And underneath that, sorry, not submission links, it's called Assessment Submission, the menu. And underneath that, you'll have an item called Submission Link, which you click and then attach your file to that link. And then don't forget, before you do that, you must complete the integrity declaration first, because if you haven't accepted the integrity declaration, the submission link won't become active. So just remember that as well, that if at the time you're trying to upload your document and you can't understand why it's not uploading, just double check, did you do the integrity declaration first, because that unlocks the submission link. And then also an FAQ that I get is the Safe Assign report. So the system will generate a Safe Assign report when you upload it, and sometimes those percentages, similarity percentages, are quite high. But because this is a numeric module and because we are uploading PDFs and not Word documents, we ignore the Safe Assign reports because we expect a high similarity because of the format of the a lot of your answers will be in the same tabular format, because you can, as you know, copy your tables from the question paper and paste them into your Word document and then fill the tables in like that. So we ignore similarity reports because I quite often get panicked emails. Oh, they're worried why their safe assign is so high, and so just remember not to worry about that. You don't hand in a hard copy, it's only uploaded, and then obviously allow enough time prior to that final due date and prior to the 9 p.m. to make sure, just in case of Wi-Fi issues and load shedding issues and just general, we know what laptops are like, they always seem to know that we've got a deadline and then decide to do an update or something at the last minute. So just make sure you allow enough time, because no concession is made for late uploads. If the timestamp on your upload is after 9 p.m. on the due date, the system will automatically mark it as being late, and we are not allowed to mark it. You then have to apply for permission for us to mark it with an explanation of why it was uploaded late. And that's, the tutor's got no control over that. It's all system controlled, so we can't do favors or anything like that because it's controlled by the system. And then the last thing is, if you encounter any technical problems, in other words, if you're getting some kind of software error when you are doing your upload, then take a screenshot, which is very important, of whatever the error is, and make sure that you include that the time at the bottom of your screen, so that you can prove what time you were trying to upload your assignment, and then log a ticket on your VC Assist, attaching the screenshot and explain what happened, so that number one, you can get assistance from somebody in the tech department that knows how to help you, and then also you've got that to use as permission for uploading your assignment late. But again, don't email me to say that you've got a technical problem, because again, there's just, we haven't got any access to the back end of the system, so we won't be able to help with any technical issues. Okay, so all of this is included just on this little assignment brief document. And I'll upload this for you guys so that you can go through it and save it and read it in your own time. Okay, anyone got anything on here that's worrying you? You're not sure what to do in terms of any of that uploading or document formats or anything like that? Everybody good? Ulrich, should you recreate all the tables? So what you can actually do, your question paper is in a PDF format. So what you can do is you can convert it to Word on your laptop, which means you can then just copy the table from the question paper onto your file, that your answer, your Word file that you're using for the answer. Then you don't have to recreate the table. You can just copy it over. Does everybody know how to do that? That you can convert your PDF file. Okay, I'll write out something. I'll go through the steps, and then I'll put the instructions up on an announcement for you. Okay. I can't remember. If I tell you now, I might skip a step or something, but it's quite easily done. Convert your PDF to Word. Obviously, maybe depending on what version you've got of Office, but with permissions. But most students should be able to do that. If you can't do it or you battle, then yes, just recreate the table in Word yourself, and they're quite simple tables with just headings and columns, so it shouldn't be too difficult if you battle with copying them over. Sorry, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Is it Sean? Yes, so referencing, if you've only used your textbook, then that is 100%, you only need to reference a textbook. You don't have to go and look for other references at all. If you have used other references, then obviously reference them, but your textbook is quite sufficient. You're not going to be penalized if the textbook is your only reference. That's perfectly fine. I'm just trying to remember for this particular assignment, when we go through it, I'll double check, but I don't think there's anything in this assignment where you have to go outside of your textbook for information. If I remember correctly, everything here is in your textbook. Okay. Let me just make a note here. And then, okay, let me just upload this other file while I'm talking. So I'm glad Sean mentioned referencing, because that's the first thing that I'll talk about now with the lesson plan, is that you must remember that, again, even though this is a numeric module, referencing is required. But not for every single question. Like, for instance, for your question 1, where you're doing a table and you just put in a tick under columns, you don't have to reference a question like that, because that's just a technical question. Same thing for question 3. You don't have to reference that. Question 4, you don't have to reference that, because, again, you're going to draw up a table and you're going to basically do accounting under each of those columns, no referencing. So it's only for questions where you have to write a paragraph, give an opinion, give a definition, compare 2 different things, that type of thing, where you have to write a paragraph that you have to reference. So I know the online librarians have already held workshops on referencing, and they're doing refresher workshops at the moment, so try and attend those if you can. I'm not sure if they're going to give us links to recordings of them, but it's always just as well just to keep going to those workshops on referencing, because the more you attend, the more familiar you'll become with the correct referencing formats, and the easier it will get for you, especially with you guys being in first year. You haven't done much referencing before, I'm assuming. Okay, so at the top of this is what this document that's on the screen now is called the lesson plan, just so that you know when I upload the documents which one is which. And this information in blue at the top is, again, I've highlighted here because these are the things that the students continually forget, and it slips their mind. So when you're doing your assignment and after you finish the question, come back to these blue items here and read them, so that you're double checking, have I read the required very carefully, and is what the question says in the required, is that exactly what I have done in my answer? It can be quite easy with an assignment where you read a question and your brain takes you in one direction, and before you know it, you've written a really nice answer, but it might be slightly off target from what was actually asked. So you have to keep going back and checking in with yourself. Have I answered the question exactly as it was asked? And also, don't leave anything out. Sometimes in some questions they'll say, calculate this and then tell us why you would do something. So in other words, there's 2 parts to the question. So don't just do the calculation and then forget to give the opinion, for instance. Because there'll be marks given for anything that's required. So if you haven't answered all parts of the question, then you will be missing out on some marks. And also very important for your numeric modules, show all of your workings. So wherever you've had to do any kind of a calculation, even if it is just an addition of 3 or 4 numbers, or a multiplication, or a percentage calculation, or whatever it happens to be, always write it down or type it on your answer sheet, because marks are often allocated to the actual workings itself. So sometimes even if your final answer might be incorrect, we can give you method marks for your workings if your method was correct and maybe you just got lost halfway through. So it's good to get into that habit right now, especially if you're going to go on and do more numeric modules later on, like accounting or financial management. Showing your workings in tests and exams and assignments is critical to making sure you get the maximum number of marks. And then for your paragraph type questions, this last one, again, always have a look to see how many marks the question is for and make sure that the length of your paragraph or your answer is appropriate for the number of marks. So you don't need to write a whole A4 page for a 4-mark question. And then also don't just give me 3 bullet points if it's a question for 10 marks. So again, just remember to watch out for that. Okay, so hopefully you guys have all got your, see, now I've dropped that on the floor, have all got your assignment in front of you. And you can reference this while we go through this document. So what I've got here in this lesson plan is really just some hints for you as to where you can go in your textbook to find the information that you need for each specific question. And that's just to make it easier, save you some time, because I remember being, especially an accounting student, and in other things like finance and tax, you spend so much time as a student paging through the textbook trying to find the right place that contains the information that you need for a particular answer. So this is just to try and help you with that, to save time. So for question 1, we've got a table that has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns with 1 column for name of account. And then a list of, I think it's 10 account names. So for each of those account names, you must put 1 tick only under one of the 7 columns. If you put a tick under 2 columns, you automatically get no marks for that question. You have to pick 1 because there is only 1 correct answer for each of those account names. So you have to identify which element of the accounting equation, basically, that particular account falls under. Oh, yes, I can imagine. I can imagine, yes. So you guys are then probably all, the last time you did accounting, you would have done, what do they call it, EMS. So you'll see a lot of what you do in this course is what you would have done in grade 8 and 9 in EMS, and then only towards the latter part of it, we start to add things that you wouldn't have done in EMS. But definitely the first 2 learning units you should have covered in EMS. Okay, so I'm going to put the assignment document up on the screen just now so that we can also just have a quick look at that for any other things that I want to highlight. So this is question 1 is for 5 marks. It mostly comes from learning unit 2, which is our accounting equation and double entry system chapter. So section 2.1 in the textbook on page 25, if you read that section, the accounting equation, that's where you'll find most of the information that you need. On page 51, we've got something called the chart of accounts incorporated in example 2.10. This is very important for the whole course. You should refer back to this chart of accounts often because it's going to be a very useful chart or graphic for you to help you when you're doing any of the questions. So I always say to the students, try and photocopy that page and stick it up somewhere where you work so that you can refer to it often, because it really is something that you should learn off by heart. And the more familiar you are with it, the easier you're going to find all of the accounting questions. And then there's a question 2.2 in the textbook on page 27 that's quite similar to the second part of question 1. Sorry, not to the second part of question 1, to question 1, particularly with the assets side, non-current and current assets. So if you do that little question, it will also give you some practice in identifying correctly which category an account belongs in. Okay, so that takes us to question 2. So this one is for 20 marks and it's divided up into 5 sub-questions. This question will need to be referenced in, I think all of these questions will need to be referenced because they are all sort of paragraph type questions. So with these ones, just take your time, read the question carefully and slow down and think about it. And I'm sure you will manage with all of these. Everything you need is in the textbook. Theoretical sections from Learning Unit 1 and 2. You will need to read the sections in your textbook first so that when you read the question, it will ring bells. Okay, so again, I've put here, remember, referencing is required. And for question 2.1, the section in your textbook on page 4, uses and uses of financial information. Read through that, and then you'll be able to answer those 6 marks. Then for question 2.2, the different forms of business, you'll find the content for that on page 11 in your textbook. So again, read through all of that. And then you'll be able to answer question 2.2. With this particular question 2.2, you might want to do some outside research as well, because the textbook does cover each of these bullet points in question 2.2, but some of them are quite a small amount of information. So again, it's 6 marks for the whole question, so you don't need to go mad, but perhaps if you find the textbook doesn't give you a lot of information, you can always do a search to find a little bit more for that one. But again, don't stress too much about that. It's more about getting the question correct than the quantity of information that you give us. And then for question 2.3, that's your own opinion. So that's why I haven't given a reference here. So you need to give your own opinion. And remember, they're saying why. You do need to give a reason why you chose the ownership form that you did. So 2 marks, 1 for mentioning the form of ownership and 1 mark for your reason. So again, for that one, there might not be a correct answer because it's entirely your opinion. So as long as you justify your choice, you'll be able to get both of those marks. Then 2.4, in your textbook on page 12 and to 13, the different fields in accounting. That's the section that you will read to be able to then answer that question. And again, remember, it's only for 4 marks. So just put down what is required. And then the last one, 2.5, explain to your friend the difference between a journal and a general ledger. So remember that you will then have to explain what is a journal and what is a general ledger so that it's clear what the difference between the two of them are. So I would suggest using the diagram of the accounting cycle on page 17 to 18. The main diagram is on page 18, because if you understand that diagram, you will then be able to give a nice explanation of how a journal differs from the general ledger. And also, when I was talking earlier about how important that chart of accounts on page 52 is, your second page that I would photocopy and keep on the wall above my desk is this accounting cycle on page 18. Because everything that we're going to do in the rest of this module is basically going to be following the steps in this accounting cycle. And it's one of the things that the students really get muddled up with when they get asked a question. They are not 100% sure which of these steps they are doing, and then quite often they describe or try and do the incorrect step because they haven't understood which of these steps the question is actually working with. So always come back to this page 18, look at the sequence of these steps and make sure that you understand which of these steps you are busy with in whichever question or example you are busy studying. And that will also help you to get into the rhythm of bookkeeping. Okay, so question 2, you shouldn't have too much trouble with that. That's also why I think I said last week on Thursday when I sent out that announcement that you should be able to do question 1, 2, and 3 quite quickly. And then this week you can work on your question 5 and next week work on your question 4, which gives you enough time to then dedicate to each of the questions that you can finish your assignment, getting the maximum number of marks. Question 3 is only for 5 marks, but students often battle with this just because they kind of are not 100% sure what exactly they're doing. So again, I've given you references here. Also comes from Learning Unit 2, which is the accounting equation. So again, I've just given you the page numbers. So what you need to read is the section on assets and liabilities, proprietary accounts, and profit. So you'll find that on pages 30 to 31. And then specifically, again, the section on profit and how do we work out the profit of a company, page 38 to 39. So also just have a look at your assignment that you've got in front of you. I think I have put that in an announcement already, but just in case I didn't, the second column, we've got 2 columns headed with a date. The first column, 1st of December 2022. The second column, the date must be the 31st of December 2022. There was a typo when they printed this up with the date. So the second column in question 3, the date must be the 31st of December. But please make a note and change that, otherwise that question won't make sense. So I've made a note here as well. So they tell you underneath the table, assume that no capital was added to the business during the month. It should be month, not year, because we were going from the 1st of December to the 31st of December, and that no drawings were made. So in other words, the owner's equity, which is how we calculated by capital minus drawings, that stayed the same. Capital and drawings were unchanged during the month. So any change in the owner's equity is only as a result of the profit or loss for that particular month of December. So you'll see the 3 question marks they've got at the bottom. Under the first column for the 1st of December, you'll work out the owner's equity as at the beginning of the month, which remember, we work it out with using the accounting equation, assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity. And then in the second column, the 31st of December, you'll also work out the owner's equity, assets minus liabilities. And then the third question mark at the bottom is where you will then calculate what the profit or loss was for the month of December. And they tell you on your question paper too, you must indicate in words with the amount that you calculate whether it is a profit or whether it is a loss. Oh, here we go. I've put it on the lesson plan here. The date at the top of the first, this is wrong. Second column should read the 31st of December. I'll correct this before I upload it for you. This is not the first column. It's just going to be enormous. It's the second column. Okay, so then we go to question 4. Sorry guys, am I going too quickly? Anybody got any questions? Anything that you're not sure of or you want to double check? Any questions about what we've done so far? Nothing? Anyone else? I sometimes tend to get carried away and just start talking, so please feel free to interrupt me anytime. Okay, good. So question 4. This one also comes from Learning Unit 2. So this question is likely to take you quite a long time. So this is why that I have said do question 1, 2, and 3 quickly, get those out of the way, and then take this week to do, I've suggested to do question 5 this week because it's similar in theme to question 3. In other words, you're working with the accounting equation and assets and liabilities, etc. But obviously it's up to you. You don't have to do that. Either question 4 or 5 this week, and then next week, whichever one you didn't do this week, you'll do next week. Because both question 4 and question 5, you want to give yourself a lot of time so that you can go through each of the questions carefully and make sure that you've got them correct. So in question 4, you've got to what they call analyze each of these transactions under the accounting equation as per the example given. You'll be surprised how many students come up with their own format. So if you look at your question paper, you'll see on page 6 of the question paper, right at the bottom of required, it says in bold, set your answer out as per the example given on the next page. So that's what you're going to have as your column headings for your answer for question 4, exactly as per this example. So they've given you an example transaction, repay a bank loan of 25,000. And then they've shown you underneath each of the columns exactly what information must be under each column for that. So for the date, this is just an example, so there was no date. They've just written example. You must put the name of the account that must be debited and the name of the account that must be credited under those first 2 accounts. So in this one, for instance, we are repaying a bank loan, which means the balance of the loan is going to decrease. And because loan is a liability, when a liability decreases, we debit it. So we're going to debit loan account. And because we are going to pay cash out of our bank account to the bank that we borrowed the money from, our bank account is an asset in our books, and when an asset decreases, we credit it. So we are going to credit bank. So under account debit, we've written loan, and under account credit, we've written bank. Just the name of the account that's going to get debited or credited. And then under the next three columns, assets equals owner's equity and liabilities, under those columns, you're going to write the amount that is going to be debited or credited. And you must indicate with a plus or a minus in front of the amount whether assets is decreasing. So for instance, in this case, bank is our asset and it's decreasing. So under the column asset, we've written minus 25,000. There's no effect to owner's equity. So we've written nothing under owner's equity. And then liability. So loan is a liability and the loan outstanding balance is decreasing. So we've written minus 25,000 under liabilities. So we can check that our accounting equation is in balance after recording this transaction, because we've got minus 25,000 on the left-hand side of the equation, and we've got minus 25,000 on the right-hand side of the equation. So we've done the exact same thing to the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the equation. So our equation still left-hand side equals the right-hand side, which you must always check after recording each transaction. Have I written the same amount on the left-hand side as I have on the right-hand side? So if the left-hand side is increased by 50,000, the right-hand side must increase by 50,000, etc. Okay, so you'll carefully do that as per the example for each one of the transactions on page 5. So how many have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 transactions. So for each one of those, you're going to record them under those headings that we've been given. Then I've just made a note over here. The question says the business uses the perpetual inventory system or perpetual inventory method. Because we've got two inventory methods, we can use the perpetual or the periodic method. So always take note in a question where they have they mentioned which inventory method, because there are some transactions that we will use specific account names depending on whether we're using the perpetual method or the periodic method. And those two methods are described on page 68 and page 69 in your textbook. So that's where you can go to get that information. And the table on page 69 basically tells you if we're using the perpetual inventory system, this is what we debit and this is what we credit when a particular type of transaction takes place. So that table on page 69, you will also come and refer to as one of your maybe it's a good idea to also take a photocopy of page 69 and keep that in your file where you can reference it easily, because you'll be doing plenty of transactions where you'll need those particular accounts. Then the other thing I just want to mention here is under the required for question 4, what they want us to ultimately do is to calculate the owner's equity in the business as at the 31st of March. So they've given us all of the transactions for the month of March, and they're saying when we get to the end of the month of March, what is the owner's equity in the business? In other words, that column, owner's equity, what is the total in that column when we get after we've done the last transaction for the month of March. And they say by showing the effect of each transaction on the accounting equation. But what I want to remind you is don't forget, when you've drawn up your column headings, your very first line is going to be the opening balances as at the 1st of March. that they have given you right at the top of page 5. They say Hout Bay Surfing Shop trades in surfboards and beach apparel. The business started trading on the 1st of January and the following balances appeared in their books on the 1st of March 2023. So in other words, this isn't a new business, so we're not going to just start with the 1st of March and carry on from there. The company already has got balances in assets, owners' equity and liability at the beginning of the 1st of March. So you must write those balances in under the correct column first. And under date, you'll put their opening balances or opening balance. And then underneath that, you'll start 1st of March transaction and so on. So that when you do your totals at the end of the month of March, your calculation will be opening balance as they gave it to you, plus all the new transactions that took place during March, and that will equal the closing balances as at the end of March. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean there? Okay, so the reason that they do that is because in your textbook, there's lots of questions where they've just given you a list of transactions and analyze the transactions under the accounting equation. They add this in just to test whether you understand how that a business's balancing the owner's equity is a running total, that each month that we make a profit or a loss, the owner's equity changes. So we've always got an opening balance in our owner's equity, and then each month it will be plus or minus the profit or loss that we made in the new month, giving us a new balance in the owner's equity, and so on throughout the financial year. So that's what they're trying to teach you in this question, rather than just giving you a list of transactions and just saying, analyze these transactions. So refer to the following in your textbooks, and I've given you a list of questions in your textbook where they either ask you to analyze transactions under the accounting equation, or they ask you to calculate the owner's equity in a business after analyzing transactions. So all of these questions in your textbooks will be very similar to this question 4 in your assignment. And remember, there's always examples in the textbook as well. So with your questions, you've got the question, you've got the solutions at the back of your textbook. So you will definitely, each of these transactions in question 4, you'll be able to find a similar transaction in these questions, and you'll be able to go and look at the solution and see exactly which account name they debited, which account name they credited, and did assets or owner's equity or liability increase or decrease. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it will take you a long time to do it properly and to make sure that you use this question. If you do this question really well and you take your time, remember, it's actually exam revision that you're doing for the end of the year, so that when you come to exams at the end of the year, you'll know how to do this analysis of transactions, rather than just copying solutions and not remembering stuff for the end of the year, and actually learning something from the question. So there's plenty to do here. This is example 2.12 on page 6. These are questions, and then also revision question 7, part 7.6 in LU7. So learning unit 7 in your textbook is basically a chapter of extra questions that they've given you at the end. So they call them revision questions and solutions. So in that chapter 7, there is also another question that is similar to this whole analysis of transactions under the accounting equation. You can see how important it is, because there are plenty of questions that over and over again in chapter 2, they get you to practice this, because again, if you can't do these questions, you're going to battle with the rest of the module. So, okay, perpetual inventory system, I've mentioned that. You've got that. Please take note of the opening balances. I've explained that. And also note the plus increases and the minus decreases. You must indicate in front of your amounts the plus or the minus sign. And they do explain that in the question to say that you must do that, and you'll lose marks if you don't, because otherwise, obviously, we don't know, was your intention that the assets increased or decreased? Because we need to know that you understand that. Okay, so plenty of work to do with that one. And then question 5 is also a question that's going to take you quite a long time to sit down and do it carefully. Probably not as long. I would say question 4 is probably the question that will take you the longest. Question 5, if you understand how to categorize your accounts into assets, liabilities, expenses, income, you shouldn't battle with this one. But and it should not take you as long as question 4. I've just made the suggestion that question 5 is sort of similar in work to what you're going to do in question 3. So I just suggest to do this one first and then leave question 4 to last, so that you can then spend all your time with question 4 right at the end, without worrying in the back of your mind, oh, I've still got question 5 to finish, and then perhaps not finishing question 5. So do question 5, get it out of the way, and then spend the rest of your time doing question 4. That's what I would suggest. So for question 5, again, your accounting equation, you need to know clearly, be able to identify what is an asset, what is a liability, what is your proprietary accounts, your capital and your drawings, and how to calculate profit, which accounts are income accounts and which accounts are expense accounts. So you'll find all of that pages 25 to 31. Proprietary accounts and profit are discussed 37 to 41. And then again, I've mentioned here that chart of accounts on page 52, because if you go and have a look at page 52, you'll see that that whole page is constructed in the exact same format that you need to do all of your answers in. For an example, question 5.1, calculate the total income and the total expenses. So if you go and have a look on page 52, under the column for expenses and the column for income, you can quickly see what are my income accounts and what are my expense accounts. So it will really help you to make sure you identify the accounts correctly. I just want to check something with that answer. Sorry, guys, just give me a minute. Question 5. Yeah, okay. So for question 5.1, a column headed income, all of the income accounts with a total, and then a column headed expenses and all of the expense accounts listed, name, amount, and then a total. I'm just trying to remember that when the students did a question like this before, please write the name of the account, not just the whole long list of amounts. So a nice way to complete it would be a column headed income, underneath that the name of an income account, and next to it the amount. And then underneath that the name of your next income account and the amount of that income. And then under the amounts column a total. That's the easiest way for you to follow what you've done, and then also for me to mark your work. Question 2.4 on page 30, I think, if I remember correctly, that question is really just about assets and liabilities. But if you look at question 2.4, it's very similar to what they've asked you to do in question 5. The only thing that's not included in question 2.4 is the income and expenses. Totals. But it will give you a very good idea of how to lay out your answer. Let me just quickly look at the solution. Question 2.4. Yeah, if you go to page 247 in your textbooks, you'll see the solution to question 2.4. So I want you to lay out your answers to question 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5 in the same way that they've done in part 1 of question 2.4 and 247. You'll see that they've got the heading, the name of the account, and the amounts and a total for each category that's been requested. So that's the nice, neat way to do it. And then you'll see over the page on page 248 where they've done the calculations that were requested in the question. Okay, so again, anything that you're battling with or you're not too sure what they want you to do while you're busy working on the assignment, just send me a message or an email and I'll be able to help you. So no question is too small. Even if it's a short little question that you've got, it doesn't. I'm not only here to answer long, complicated questions. Any question, as simple as it may seem, you can ask me. If it's something that's worrying you and you need help with, then rather ask than stress about wondering whether you're doing the right thing. Okay, any other questions at this stage? Everybody? Okay. Okay, how are we all doing? You can give a no answer if you're not happy, because then at least I know that there's someone that needs help and I can always help you afterwards. Okay, so most of you are okay so far, and hopefully this has been helpful for you so far as well. Okay. The students that have got no response, have you all gone to sleep, or are you watching Netflix or scrolling Instagram, watching TV, or are you just too shy to click no? Okay. All right, guys. Yeah, it's a pleasure, Ulrich. Yeah, I think it really helps the students because really in terms of saving time, you know, and I know that the thing that the students battle the most with is when you guys are short of time because you are distance students, just to try and go through the textbook and try and remember where on earth, I know I read it, but I can't remember which page was that on again. That hopefully helps with that. Okay, so then just quickly, I see we're already at 7 o'clock, but where is it? I just quickly want to put the assignment document on the screen, and then just highlight anything that I want to bring to your attention that I don't want you to forget or to miss while you're doing your assignment. I don't think there's too much here. And again, guys, as we're going through this, please ask any questions as you see the question on the screen. If there's anything that you say, okay, ma'am, I wasn't sure what they meant there, or what must I do with this question? Okay. All right, so question 1 should hopefully be quite straightforward. You're going to duplicate this table, and for each of these account names, and again, remember, go to that chart on page 52, and it's really going to be a very good cheat sheet for you in a lot of your questions. And each of these, you're only going to tick or make a cross in one column. And that's all you have to do. So 5 marks, so it's half a mark each. Question 2, this is the one where most of these questions are paragraph or theory questions. So you're going to make sure that you've carefully read the question, that you're answering exactly what was asked, and that you're writing enough information for the number of marks given, and that you've referenced wherever you've written a paragraph. And also just don't forget your reference list right at the end of the assignment, your bibliography page. Okay, again, when you're doing this question, if there's anything you get stuck with, you can ask me. This should be straightforward. All of this is in your textbook. This question 2.3, this is the one where you're going to use your own opinion with giving a reason. And don't be shy. Whatever your opinion is, express it and put it down there. You won't be marked wrong. This one is very easy, straight out the textbook, 2.4 and 2.5 also. That is in the textbook if you go to the correct place. And just a simple definition of a journal and a general ledger, explaining when you use a journal as opposed to when we use the general ledger. Question 3 is also only for 5 marks. So this is the one where here, well, that's the 31st of December. The second column must be 31st of December. So you've got 3 amounts that you're going to write down. I would just duplicate this table. I mean, it's easy enough. Write down the 2 columns with these 4 amounts and then your answers over here. Okay, so owner's equity as at the 1st of December, owner's equity as at the 31st of December. And then how did the owner's equity change from the beginning of the month to the end of the month? And the difference between those two will then be your answer here, which is then either going to be a profit or a loss. So remember, if the owner's equity increased from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, would that be a profit or would that be a loss? If the owner's equity is more at the end of the month than it was at the beginning of the month, would that indicate that they'd made a profit or a loss for that month of December? Yes. Perfect. Good. Okay. Awesome. So, and then just remember, if whatever it happens to be, profit or loss, you're going to write down the amount, and then next to it, you're going to write down the word profit or loss. That's important. That must be done. And then your question 4, just going to go over the page first, because the most important thing is this is what you're going to write down as your headings on your answer book. Make these columns, okay, firstly, exactly like this. Then you are going to write down using, in that date column, you're going to write down opening balances. And here are the following balances appeared in their books on the 1st of March. So these 3 items were in the opening balance. So each of these, bank, inventory, and capital, you have to put them with the correct, put the account and the amount under the correct column, so that your opening balance, before you start recording, so that you're going to put them under, that amount is going to go, each of those 3 amounts must go under one of these columns, so that you've then got your opening balance, and then you will then list the March transaction. So for that opening balance here, under date, you'll write opening balances or opening balance, and those 3 amounts will go in those 3 columns. So that when you write down all those other March transactions, when you get to the end, you'll have closing, under the date column, you'll write closing balance, and then you'll add up all of these 3 columns. What was my total assets, owners, etc. And then make sure at the end that your left-hand side equals the right-hand side, because that will show you that you've entered all of your transactions correctly. So each of these 10 or 11 transactions must be listed individually, one underneath each other, exactly as per the example. So there's loads of examples of this in your textbook, and they've given you an example transaction here and showed you exactly how it must be written to get all the marks. And then your question 5, they've given you this long list, which is basically a trial balance of this business called Saxby Plastics, with all of their accounts in their general ledger, with the balances in that account as at the 31st of January. And then they want you to group those accounts according to these questions. So in 5.1, identify all of the income accounts and total them. Identify all the expense accounts and total them. 5.2, and remember, current assets as opposed to non-current assets. Make sure you understand that difference. You need to understand that in question 1 as well. And then current liabilities as opposed to non-current liabilities in 5.4 and 5.5. So those first 5, hopefully you won't have any trouble with those. And then 5.6, they want you to calculate the net profit or loss. Okay, so remember, how do we calculate the profit or loss of a business? How do we calculate the profit or loss of a business? If we've got all of these, totals, which one of these is going to help us calculate the profit or loss for the business? What is our simple little formula for calculating profit or loss? Anybody? Yes. Nalini's got it right. Anybody else? You agree with her? Anyone got a different opinion? Income minus expenses? Okay, you all agree. Good. Total income minus total expenses equals profit. So you've already calculated your total income and your total expenses up here in 5.1. So for 5.6, all you need to do is go and use those two totals, calculate the profit, and then state whether it's a profit or a loss. Again, they've said here, indicate clearly if it is a profit or a loss, using the word profit or loss next to the amount that you've calculated. And then calculate the owner's equity. So what's our formula for calculating owner's equity? Remember your basic accounting equation. So our basic accounting equation says that assets is equal to owner's equity plus liabilities. So if we want to calculate owner's equity, what will our equation be? How will we swap that accounting equation around so that it says owner's equity equals, exactly, there you go. Owner's equity is equal to all assets minus all liabilities, total assets minus total liabilities. So again, in these questions, 5.2 to 5.5, you've calculated your total assets and your total liabilities. So you'll use your answers to these questions to then calculate 5.7. And then 5.8 is really, again, you should be able to think some of these things up on your own. How, if they want to grow the business, name 3 things that they can do to increase sales. So that, again, you can come up with you can come up with that on your own. Anything that's logic and that's correct and makes sense, you'll get those 3 marks. So again, there's no correct answer for that, as long as what you've written down does make sense in terms of the question that they've asked. Okay, guys. I don't want to go on too long, but I also want to make sure you've got all the help that you need. Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks, Ulrich. I'm really glad. So you have found it helpful. And remember, this is recorded. I'm going to upload the recording. So anything that you've missed or lost or forgotten by the time we've got to the end, you can go back to this recording and listen to it again, refer to it. And those 2 documents that I used in the beginning, I'll upload those for you. So you've got all of those references as well. Okay. So where's everybody at? Where's all the other people that aren't answering? Are they all gone offline? All the no response people. Pelelo, gosh, you know what? I'm not sure what you've got access to. Have you got? Are you close to a campus, Pelelo? Any of the VC campuses? Because you can go to the campus and to the library. They will have copies of the textbook in the library, and you'll be able to sit in the library and work out, or you might be able to take one of the textbooks, take it out the library and take it home with you and work with it at home. That would be easiest. Okay, so you're not close to a campus. Yes, you know, because I mean, look, accounting is the same worldwide. I mean, it's a system that everybody uses. So any, even if you've got I'm trying to think what textbook, you should be able to use the internet, or any basic first year accounting textbook, you should be able to get these answers out of, or even, I don't know if you've still got your EMS textbooks, a lot of the information you'll be able to get from those. But remember what I said at the beginning, if you're worried about not having the correct materials to do your assignment, please don't hesitate to ask for an extension. You've got last year's textbook. Last year's textbook being, what grade was that, or what would that have been? Would that have been a school textbook? But honestly, I know what your situation is, and they will definitely give you okay, yes, you should be able to use that. You should definitely be able to use that. Anything from grade 8, grade 9 and onwards accounting textbooks you'll be able to use. But please, I know what your situation was with the textbook and with access, etc. So please ask for an extension. They'll definitely give it to you if you want to wait for the textbook. There won't be any problem with that. But if you don't want to wait, that's also perfectly fine. You can go ahead and attempt it. Okay, guys, that's awesome. I'm glad that you found that helpful. And remember to send me a message with anything that you still worried about. Or as you work through the questions, send me a message and I'll be able to help you. I'm just going to end the recording here.